Hello and welcome to World News here on TVP World. I'm your host, Diana Skaya. And we begin with this latest edition at the top of the hour. U.S. President Donald Trump has announced his intention to slap 50% tariffs on European goods, which would kick in at the beginning of June and follow on from seemingly fruitless trade discussions between Washington and Brussels. Let's now go live to our EU correspondent, Angela Skujins, who is in Brussels. Angela, hello. Now, how are EU leaders reacting to this news?
Hi, Diana. So we haven't heard any formal response from that EU executive just yet, but European leaders have reacted to this bombshell news. This includes Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof saying he expects a robust and formal response from the European Union. We've also heard from German Foreign Minister Johann Wadephul saying that this latest threat from US President Donald Trump does nothing in terms of these negotiated 90 days where these trade partners are trying to find a compromise regarding this escalating trade war. It is important to note, however, that the European Commission has confirmed that EU Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic will speak to his American counterpart. This is US Trade Representative Jameson Greer at roughly 5:30. This call was scheduled prior to this latest threat by US President Donald Trump on Truth Social, and we are hoping for some kind of readout regarding the dialogue of these talks. But according to that post from the 47th President of the United States, this threat was laid bare as he claims these discussions with Brussels are going nowhere. Now, these partners are in a 90-day pause on reciprocal tariffs imposed by US President Donald Trump last month, aka Liberation Day. He then threatened 20% tariffs on European goods. This would sit on top of those other 25% tariffs on a range of European products such as car and car parts, steel and aluminium. But this really represents the rift between these two allies, Europe and the States. It's also underscored by those diverging military ambitions as well as support for Ukraine. But what is clear is that only 8 days remain before that June the 1st deadline. And unless a compromise is agreed upon, the trillion-dollar trade relationship between these superpowers will be razed to the ground. But we'll keep you updated when these comments come through.
Thank you so much, Angela Skujins, coming to us live from Brussels. The negotiations on tariffs between the U.S. and the EU do continue, according to the Polish Deputy Minister of Development and Technology, despite President Trump's earlier proposal to increase the tariffs on goods coming from the EU to a whopping 50%.
The European Union and the United States continue negotiating. Some of those negotiations happen behind closed doors, others in front of the cameras. As you very well know, the European Commission plays the main negotiator role, and I can confirm it is fully supported in its efforts by all member states. The fact that we see some important statements in the public domain does not mean that they will translate into actions by the U.S. administration. So far, we have a clear signal also at the political level that the United States and the European Union have decided to hold back with reciprocal tariffs. We have time until early July to conduct negotiations, and to the best of my knowledge, these negotiations are moving forward. The EU Trade Commissioner will meet with the U.S. Trade Representative at the beginning of June in Paris, and that will give them another opportunity to discuss concrete steps rather than general ideas.
Russia and Ukraine have each released 390 prisoners of war. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy confirmed, and more are expected to be freed over the weekend under the largest prisoner exchange so far agreed between Kyiv and Moscow. Our Kyiv correspondent, Oz Katerji, is in the Ukrainian capital. Oz, historic day, we can say. What can you tell us about this swap? What more details do we have?
This was the swap that was brokered in Istanbul, which was supposed to be 1,000 prisoners in exchange from each side. Now, only 390 have been released in this first batch of prisoners, but they are expected to continue. Now, Russia and Ukraine have been trading prisoners of war since the start of the war, basically. These kinds of agreements have been happening for a while. This is the largest one. But Donald Trump, the US president, has congratulated both sides of the negotiation and said this could lead to something big. However, I don't think that's the impression that they're getting here from Kyiv. They're still maintaining that they want this 30-day unconditional ceasefire that Russia keeps refusing to commit to. Now, President Zelenskyy said of the prisoner swap, thank you to everyone who helps, who works 24/7 to ensure that Ukrainians return home. It is very important to return everyone who is in captivity. We are checking every name, information on every person. Let us continue our diplomatic work to make such steps continue.
Thank you so much for breaking it down for us, Oz Karagi from Kyiv, and we will be coming back to you for more details as to how that all unfolds. Russian authorities, though, have been forced to shut down several airports in Moscow after a swarm of Ukrainian drones hit the country. This marks the third consecutive night of Ukraine's drone attacks deep into Russian territory.
Operations have been suspended at Vnukovo, Domodedovo and Zhukovsky airports, which serve the Russian capital. According to the mayor of Moscow, Russian air defenses allegedly shot down 6 drones that were flying towards Moscow. Later in the night, the Russian official reported 3 more drones downed by local air defense systems, and that emergency services were working at impact sites. So far, there are no reported casualties.
A Russian bomber has reportedly been intercepted by Polish fighter jets. Poland's defense minister, Władysław Kosiniak-Kamysz, said that the Russian Su-24 plane performed dangerous maneuvers over the Baltic Sea's international waters on Thursday evening. Kosiniak-Kamysz added that the order to intercept the Su-24 came from the Operational Command Combined for NATO allied forces in Europe. The minister emphasized that the nature of the maneuvers carried out by the Russian plane suggests that this was not an accidental action but an intentional one. He also mentioned another incident in the Baltic Sea, the suspicious movements of a ship from the Russian Shadow fleet of oil tankers near the power cable connecting Poland with Sweden. The hydrographic ship ORP Hevelius was directed to the scene. Poland is bolstering its defense capabilities with the ongoing development of the East Shield program. The project is a key part of the National Deterrence and Defense Plan. The latest engineering segment of this program was presented on Friday with top military officials and soldiers in attendance.
Officials from Poland's General Staff and military engineers gathered in Rudka, the Warmian-Mazurian region, on Friday to unveil the program's latest engineering developments. The event highlighted the ongoing construction efforts by the 16th Sapper Regiment from the 16th Mechanized Division.
We are fully aware that any dam is only an obstacle if it is not seriously protected. Therefore, as part of the ongoing engineering work, fire stations, hiding places for soldiers, and fire positions for equipment are being built.
Poland's East Shield program, a critical element of the Polish defense strategy, aims to enhance the country's military infrastructure along its eastern border with Russia and Belarus.
Our strategies and actions are based on lessons learned from how we plan our defenses. We draw on the experiences from Ukraine.
The project was initiated by Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk. It was also recently recognized as a flagship project of common interest for the European Union.
The Danish parliament has voted in favor of increasing the official retirement age from 67 to 70 years. The bill will be effective from 2040 and impact those born on or after January 1, 1971. Danish lawmakers say the decision was motivated by increased life expectancy, but public opinion in Denmark is divided.
I'm glad that for 20 years we have made broad agreements on pensions with a very large majority. Danes know what they can count on. I wish they would stop and scrap this, and not raise it to 70, but leave it at 67 and find another solution.
I think it's a bit unrealistic. I've had knee surgery, a shoulder operation, and a back surgery because I suffered a work-related injury. It's fun to be at work, it's fun to be able to make a difference. At my age, it's also nice to help influence young people, hopefully in a positive way. He's a knowledge bank who's quicker to respond than AI. It would be a real shame if there were a senior who wanted to continue working but decided to stop because they think some colleagues believe they're too old. The study shows that's not the case.
And that completes this edition of World News here on TVP World. I'm Diana Skaya, and don't go away. The bottom line is up next.